The alien ship Nexus 7 moved slowly through the dark space where Earth's solar system used to be. Captain Zethkar stood on the bridge, his blue skin glowing under the ship's lights. His 6 eyes looked out at the floating pieces of metal and rock that were all that remained of the human homeworld. "Captain, we are picking up energy readings from the debris field," said Commander Krickstall, his clawed hands working the control panel. "It appears to be coming from a large piece of wreckage about 2 miles away." Zethkar nodded. The Vorthan Empire had sent his team here to look for anything useful from the old human civilization. It had been 300 years since they destroyed the humans in the Great War. Most people thought there was nothing left to find, but the Empire wanted to be sure. "Take us closer," Zethkar ordered. "But keep our weapons ready. We do not know what we might find." The Nexus 7 turned toward the energy signal. As they got closer, they could see it was part of a human colony ship. The front half was completely destroyed, but the back section still had some power. Dr. Velthara looked up from her scanner. She was the ship's science officer, and her purple skin showed she was excited. "Captain, I am reading life support systems still working in that section. There might be something alive in there." "Alive?" Krickstall's voice was sharp. "That is impossible. All humans died in the war or were killed after it ended." "The readings do not lie," Velthara said. "There is definitely something keeping life support running in that wreckage." Zethkar thought for a moment. Finding anything alive from the human era would be a great discovery. The Empire's scientists still wondered how the humans had fought so well against their superior technology. If there was something left, it might have answers. "Prepare a boarding team," he ordered. "We will investigate personally." 2 hours later, Zethkar, Velthara, and 4 armed soldiers stood in the broken corridors of the human ship. Their breathing equipment worked to filter the old air. Emergency lights flickered, casting strange shadows on the walls. "The life support is coming from deeper in the ship," Velthara said, checking her scanner. "Down this corridor and to the left." They walked carefully through the damaged ship. The walls were covered with old battle scars. Burn marks and holes showed where weapons had hit. Pictures of human faces looked down at them from broken picture frames. "Look at these creatures," one of the soldiers said, pointing at a picture of a human family. "So primitive, only 2 eyes and no claws. How did they fight us for so long?" "Do not let their appearance fool you," Krickstall warned. "They were clever fighters. That is why the Empire made sure to destroy them all." They reached a heavy door marked with human writing. Velthara's scanner was beeping faster now. "The energy is strongest behind this door," she said. The soldiers forced the door open. Inside was a small room with strange machines and blinking lights. In the center was a large metal container that looked like a bed. Frost covered its surface, and a small window showed something inside. "It is a cryopod," Velthara whispered. "The humans use these to sleep for long trips through space." Zethkar moved closer to the window. Inside the pod was a human male, perfectly preserved. His skin was pale and his hair was dark. He looked young and strong, even in his deep sleep. "How long has he been in there?" Zethkar asked. Velthara checked the pod's computer. "According to these readings, he has been in cryosleep for 312 years. He was put in here during the final battle of the war." "A living human," Krickstall said, his voice full of disgust. "We should destroy it and leave." "No," Velthara said quickly. "Captain, this is an amazing discovery. We could learn so much from studying a living human. Think of what the Empire scientists could discover." Zethkar stared at the sleeping human. The man wore what looked like a military uniform. On his chest was a name tag that read Morrison J. There were also rank symbols that showed he was some kind of officer. "What do we know about him?" Zethkar asked. Velthara worked on the pod's computer for several minutes. "His name is Jake Morrison. He was a lieutenant in the human military. Age 28 when he entered cryosleep. He was scheduled to wake up after a 6-month mission, but the ship was destroyed before that could happen. So he has been sleeping here for 3 centuries, not knowing his people lost the war," Zethkar said. "Interesting." "Captain, I strongly Advise against waking this creature, Crystal said. Humans are dangerous. Even one of them could cause problems. 1 human against 30 trained Vorthan warriors, Zethkar laughed. I think we can handle him, Commander. And the scientific value would be enormous. Velthara was already checking the pod systems. The cryopod is still working perfectly. I can wake him up safely. It would take about an hour for the process to complete. Zethkar made his decision. Do it. But first, let's move this pod to our ship. I want him to wake up in a controlled environment. The soldiers carefully moved the cryopod to the Nexus 7. They placed it in the ship's medical bay, where Velthara could monitor everything. Security guards stood watch outside the room. Beginning the wake-up process now, Velthara announced over the ship's communication system. All senior staff report to the medical bay. The pod systems hummed to life. Lights blinked faster, and the frost on the surface began to melt. Inside, Jake Morrison's body started to move slightly as the machines brought him back to consciousness. His brain activity is increasing, Velthara reported. Heart rate is rising. All systems appear normal. Zethkar watched through the observation window. How long until he is fully awake? About 20 more minutes, Velthara answered. Captain, I should mention that humans can be confused and possibly violent when they first wake up from cryosleep. We should be ready for anything. Let him be violent, Crystal said. It will give us a good reason to put him down. No, Zethkar said firmly. We need him alive for study. Use stun weapons only if necessary. The final minutes passed slowly. The pod systems made soft beeping sounds as they finished their work. Then, with a soft hiss, the pod's lid opened. Jake Morrison's eyes opened for the first time in over 300 years. He blinked several times, looking confused. His breathing was slow and steady as he looked around the medical bay. Where am I? He asked in the human language. His voice was rough from the long sleep. Velthara activated the universal translator. You are safe, she said. You have been in cryosleep for a very long time. Jake slowly sat up in the pod. His movements were careful, like someone who had been asleep for too long. He looked at the aliens surrounding him, but his face showed no fear. Who are you? He asked. And where is my ship? I am Dr. Velthara, she said. This is Captain Zethkar. We are from the Vorthan Empire. We found you in the wreckage of your colony ship. Jake's eyes became more focused. The war? He said. What happened? How long was I out? Zethkar stepped forward. The war ended 300 years ago, human. Your people lost. They were all destroyed. Jake stared at him for a long moment. Then he looked down at his hands. All of them? He asked quietly. Yes, Zethkar said. You are the last of your kind. Jake sat in silence for several minutes. The aliens expected him to cry or become angry, but he just sat there thinking. Finally, he looked up at them. I see, he said calmly. And now you want to study me. That is correct, Velthara said. You are a valuable specimen. We can learn much from you. Jake nodded slowly. I understand. He looked around the medical bay again. What do you want to know? 1 week had passed since Jake Morrison woke up from his long sleep. The alien crew of the Nexus 7 had given him a small room near the medical bay. It had a bed, a table, and a small window that showed the stars outside. Jake seemed to accept his situation without complaint. Every day, Dr. Velthara came to ask him questions. She wanted to know about human culture, their technology, and how they fought in the war. Jake answered her questions in a calm, helpful way. He told her about Earth, about human families, and about their simple weapons. Tell me about human military tactics, Velthara said during one of their sessions. She sat across from Jake at the small table, her purple skin glowing softly in the room's light. Jake thought for a moment. We used basic strategies. Form lines, charge forward, use cover when possible. Nothing too complicated. Your people were much more advanced than us. Yet you fought us for many years, Velthara said. How did you last so long against our superior weapons? Luck, mostly, Jake said with a small smile. And we had a lot of people willing to die for their homes. Sometimes that makes up for having worse weapons. Valthara made notes on her electronic pad. She found it interesting that Jake seemed so calm about his people's defeat. Most creatures would be angry or sad, but Jake just accepted it as fact. What she did not know was that Jake was learning as much from her as she was from him. While she asked questions, he was studying her reactions, her language, and the way she used her equipment. He was also listening to the sounds of the ship around them. At night, when the ship was quiet, Jake would lie in his bed and think about what he had learned. He knew the ship had 30 crew members. He knew they worked in shifts, with fewer people awake during the night hours. He knew the location of the weapons storage, the bridge, and the engine room. Jake had also been watching the guards who stood outside his room. They were lazy and bored. They often talked to each other instead of watching him. Sometimes they even fell asleep during their shifts. During his second week on the ship, Jake asked if he could walk around more. "I feel trapped in this small room," he told Dr. Valthara. "Could I perhaps see other parts of your ship?" Valthara talked to Captain Zethkar about this request. "He seems harmless," she said, "and it might help him feel more cooperative if we show him some freedom." "Very well," Zethkar said, "but he must always have 2 guards with him, and he is not allowed in sensitive areas like the bridge or weapons storage." Jake seemed happy with this arrangement. He would walk through the ship's corridors with his 2 guards, looking at everything with curiosity. He asked simple questions about how things worked. The guards thought he was just a primitive human amazed by their technology, but Jake was actually mapping the entire ship in his mind. He counted the number of crew members in each section. He noted where the security cameras were placed. He saw which doors required special access codes and which ones were always left open. "Your ship is very impressive," Jake told one of his guards, a young Vorthan named Kethra. "How fast can it go?" "Faster than any human ship ever built," Kethra said proudly. "We can cross the galaxy in just a few months." "Amazing," Jake said. "And the weapons?" "They must be very powerful, the most powerful in the galaxy," Kethra boasted. "We could destroy a planet if we wanted to." Jake nodded and smiled, but inside he was thinking about what he had learned. The ship was fast and well-armed, but the crew was overconfident. They thought they were safe because they had good technology. During his 3rd week, something happened that made Dr. Valthara start to worry. Jake was having a medical examination when one of the metal restraints around his wrist started to bend. Jake quickly straightened it and acted like nothing had happened. "Did you see that?" Valthara asked her medical assistant. "See what, doctor?" The assistant replied. "The restraint. It looked like it was bending." The assistant checked the restraint and found it was perfectly normal. "It looks fine to me, doctor. Perhaps you were tired." But Valthara was not convinced. She started watching Jake more carefully during their sessions. She noticed that he learned their language very quickly, too quickly for a normal human. She also saw that he seemed to understand their technology much better than he let on. "Captain," she said to Zethkar one day, "I think there might be something different about our human prisoner." "Different how?" Zethkar asked. "He learns too. Fast, he understands things too easily. And I think he might be stronger than he appears." Zethkar laughed. "Doctor, you are being paranoid. He is just one human. Even if he is a little smarter or stronger than average, what can he do against 30 of us?" "I am not sure," Valthara said, "but I think we should be more careful." Meanwhile, Jake was making another important discovery. While walking through the ship, he had found the computer terminal in the ship's library. His guards thought he was just looking at pictures, but Jake was actually learning to read the Vorthan language. The computer contained information about the current state of the galaxy. Jake read about the Vorthan Empire and how it controlled most of the known worlds. He learned about their military and their technology. But most importantly, he found references to human survivors. The Empire thought they had killed all humans. But Jake found reports of strange sightings on distant worlds. Ships that looked human. Colonies that appeared and disappeared. The Empire dismissed these as mistakes or false reports, but Jake knew better. His people were not all dead. Some had survived and were hiding. They were waiting for the right moment. To strike back that night, Jake lay in his bed and thought about what he had learned. The Empire was strong, but they had grown lazy in their 300 years of peace. They thought they were safe because they had won the war long ago. Jake smiled in the darkness. They had no idea what they had really awakened. The next morning, Dr. Velthara came to his room for their daily session. She looked worried and tired. "Jake," she said, "I need to ask you something important. Were you a normal soldier in the human military?" Jake looked at her with innocent eyes. "What do you mean by normal? Were you enhanced in any way? Made stronger or smarter than other humans?" Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "All soldiers are trained to be strong and smart. Is that what you mean?" "No," Velthara said. "I mean, were you changed by your scientists? Were you made into something more than human?" Jake shook his head. "I was just a regular lieutenant, nothing special about me." But as he said this, Velthara noticed something. For just a moment, his eyes seemed to glow with a strange light. It was so quick that she almost missed it. "I see," she said slowly. "Well, that is good too." No, after she left, Jake stood up and walked to his small window. He looked out at the stars and thought about his next move. The aliens were starting to suspect something, but they still did not know the truth. Jake Morrison was not just a regular human soldier. He was something much more dangerous. And soon the crew of the Nexus 7 would learn what that meant. He touched the metal wall of his room, and for just a moment his fingers left small dents in the hard surface. Then he smoothed them out and went back to his bed. The time for pretending was almost over. Jake had been on the Nexus 7 for 3 weeks when the emergency alarm started blaring. He was in his room when the lights turned red and the ship began to shake. His guards rushed in, looking worried. "What is happening?" Jake asked, standing up from his bed. "Emergency situation," one of the guards said. "You must stay here until it is over." The guards left and locked the door behind them. Jake could hear their footsteps running down the corridor toward the bridge. He walked to his small window and looked out at space. In the distance, he could see flashes of light. Ships were fighting. Jake watched the battle and noticed something interesting. The attacking ships were using hit-and-run tactics, striking fast and then disappearing. It was smart strategy against a larger enemy. On the bridge, Captain Zethkar was dealing with the crisis. A Vorthan mining station had sent a distress call. They were being attacked by ships from the Scaran Coalition, a group of rebels who fought against the Empire. "How many enemy ships?" Zethkar asked. 6 fighters and 2 larger ships, Commander Crystal reported. "The mining station has no military ships to defend itself." "Then we will help them," Zethkar decided. "It is our duty to protect Empire property." Dr. Velthara looked up from her station. "Captain, what about the human? Should we put him in a secure cell before we fight?" 1. "Human in a locked room is not a threat," Zethkar said. "Leave him where he is." The Nexus 7 moved toward the battle. Jake felt the ship turn and speed up. He was still watching through his window when the first enemy ship appeared. It was smaller than the Nexus 7 but moved much faster. 20 minutes later, the battle was not going well for the Vorthan forces. The Scaran fighters were too quick and knew how to use the asteroid field around the mining station to hide. Every time the Nexus 7 tried to attack, the enemies would disappear behind rocks and then hit them from a different direction. "We are losing," Crystal said. "These rebels fight like cowards, hiding behind rocks instead of fighting honorably." "Their tactics are effective," Zethkar admitted. "But we must find a way to beat them." Dr. Velthara had an idea. "Captain, what if we asked the human for advice? He might know something about fighting tactics." "A human help us?" Crystal laughed. "They lost the war. What could they teach us?" But Zethkar was desperate. "Bring him to the bridge, but keep him under guard." 5 minutes later, Jake was standing on the bridge of the Nexus 7. He looked around at all the alien technology with what seemed like wonder. The crew thought he was amazed by their advanced systems. "Human," Zethkar said, "we are fighting an enemy that uses cowardly tactics. They hide behind rocks and run away when we attack. How would your people deal with such an enemy?" Jake studied the battle display on the main screen. He could see the positions of all the ships, both friendly and enemy. After a few moments, he pointed to a spot on the screen. "You are fighting them the way they want to fight," Jake said. "They want you to chase them around the rocks? Instead, you should force them to come to you." "How?" Zethkar asked. "The mining station," Jake said. "That is what they really want. Stop chasing their fighters and protect the station directly. Put your ship between them and their target. Then they will have to come to you to complete their mission." Zethkar looked at the battle display again. The human was right. The Vorthan ships had been chasing the enemy fighters all over the asteroid field, but they had ignored the real objective. "Do it," Zethkar ordered. "Move the ship to protect the mining station." The Nexus 7 changed position. Instead of chasing the fast enemy ships, it moved close to the mining station and waited. Jake watched the enemy ships on the display and predicted their next move. "They will try to attack from 3 directions at once," Jake said. "2 ships will come from the left to get your attention. While you are fighting them, the other ships will attack from the right and above." "How do you know this?" Crystal asked. "Because that is what I would do," Jake said simply. Zethkar ordered his weapons teams to watch all directions. When the enemy attack came, it happened exactly as Jake had predicted. The Vorthan gunners were ready and shot down 4 of the enemy fighters in the first few seconds. The remaining enemy ships tried to run, but now they were trapped between the Nexus 7 and the asteroid field. Within 10 minutes, all the rebel ships were destroyed. "Excellent work," Zethkar said to Jake. "Your tactical knowledge was very useful." Jake nodded, happy to help. But while the aliens celebrated their victory, Jake was thinking about what he had learned. The Vorthan military was predictable and slow to adapt. They relied on their superior firepower instead of using smart tactics. In a real fight, they would be easy to defeat. After the battle, Jake was given more freedom on the ship. The crew saw him as helpful and harmless. They let him visit the ship's library and computer room without guards. They thought he was just curious about their technology. Jake used this freedom to learn everything he could about the Vorthan Empire. He read about their military organization, their planet locations, and their weaknesses. He also searched for more information about human survivors. What he found made him excited. The Empire had records of strange events on dozens of worlds, ships that appeared and disappeared, colonies that were built overnight, technology that seemed too advanced. For the local species, the Empire thought these were just mistakes in their reports, but Jake knew better. His people were out there. They were hiding, building, and waiting. They had learned from their defeat 300 years ago. Jake also learned something else important. The Empire had grown weak. They controlled many worlds, but they did not have enough ships to patrol all of them. Most of their military was spread thin across the galaxy. If someone attacked them in the right places, they would not be able to respond quickly. One evening, Dr. Velthara came to see Jake in the library. She found him reading about Vorthan history. He looked up when she entered and smiled. "Learning about your people," Jake said. "Very interesting culture." "Jake," Velthara said, "I need to ask you something. Today during the battle, you knew exactly what the enemy would do. How?" Jake closed the book he was reading. "I told you. I guessed what I would do in their situation, but you were too accurate." Velthara said, "No one is that good at guessing. You knew their tactics like you had fought them before." Jake looked at her for a long moment. "Maybe I am just good at understanding how people think in battle. Or maybe you are more than you appear to be," Velthara said. "Maybe you are not just a regular human soldier." Jake stood up from his chair. For the first time since he had been awakened, his friendly expression disappeared. Velthara saw something in his eyes that made her step back. "Dr. Velthara," Jake said quietly, "you are a smart person, but you are asking questions that might be dangerous for you to know the answers to. Are you threatening me?" Velthara asked. "No," Jake said. "I am warning you. Some secrets are better left alone." Velthara left the library quickly. As she walked back to her quarters, she thought about what Jake had said. She was beginning to understand that they had not just found a human survivor. They had found something much more dangerous. That night, Jake stood at his window and looked out at the stars. He had learned everything he needed to know. The Empire was weak. His people were alive. And soon it would be time to act. He pressed his hand against the metal wall of his room. The hard surface bent slightly under his fingers. Jake smiled and whispered to himself, "The war is not over. It is just beginning." Jake was walking back to his room after dinner when he heard voices coming from the crew meeting room. The door was slightly open, and he could see Captain Zethkar talking to his officers inside. Jake moved closer to listen. "The human has been useful," Zethkar was saying, "but we cannot keep him on the ship forever. Command has sent new orders." "What kind of orders?" Dr. Velthara asked. "We are to deliver him to the research station on Koroth Prime," Zethkar said. "The Empire's best scientists want to study him completely." Commander Crixtal nodded. "Good. I never liked having that creature on our ship. What exactly will they do to him?" Velthara asked. She sounded worried. "Complete biological analysis," Zethkar said. "They will take him apart piece by piece to understand how humans work. It will help us make sure no other humans ever cause problems for the Empire." Jake felt his heart rate increase, but he kept his face calm. He had suspected this would happen, but hearing it confirmed made everything clear. They had never planned to keep him alive. "When do we deliver him?" Crixtal asked. "In 3 days," Zethkar said. "We are changing course to Koroth Prime tonight. The human must not know about this until we arrive." Jake quietly moved away from the door and walked back to his room. His guards nodded at him as he passed, not knowing that everything had just changed. In his room, Jake sat on his bed and thought about his situation. He had been playing the role of a harmless, cooperative prisoner for weeks, but now he had to make a choice. He could continue pretending and hope for a chance to escape later, or he could act now. Jake looked at his hands. For weeks he had been hiding his true strength. The metal restraint that had bent during his medical exam was not an accident. He had been testing his abilities without letting the aliens know. During the war, the human military had created a secret program. They took their best soldiers and enhanced them with experimental technology. Jake was one of only 12 soldiers who had received the full treatment. The aliens had awakened not just a human, but a weapon designed to destroy their empire. Jake stood up and walked to his door. He listened carefully to the sounds in the corridor. The night shift had fewer guards, and most of the crew was asleep. It was the perfect time to begin. He pressed his hand against the door's lock mechanism. His enhanced strength crushed the metal easily. The door opened without making a sound. Jake looked out into the corridor and saw one guard at the far end. Facing away from him, Jake moved like a shadow down the corridor. His enhanced reflexes made him faster than any normal human. He reached the guard before the alien could turn around. Jake's hand covered the guard's mouth while his other arm cut off the blood flow to the alien's brain. The guard fell unconscious. In seconds, Jake dragged the guard into an empty room and took his weapon. It was a Vorthan energy rifle, much more advanced than the weapons humans had used in the war. Jake tested its weight and balance. It would work fine. The ship's security system showed 29 crew members on board. Jake had memorized their locations and schedules during his weeks of observation. He knew exactly where everyone would be and how to reach them. His first target was the communications room. If he could stop the ship from sending messages, the crew could not call for help. Jake moved through the corridors like a ghost. Avoiding the security cameras he had mapped earlier, the communications room had 2 technicians working the night shift. Jake entered quietly and disabled both aliens before they could sound an alarm. He destroyed the communication equipment and moved to his next target. The weapons control room was on the same level. Jake eliminated the single guard there and sabotaged the ship's main guns. Now the Nexus 7 could not fight back if help arrived. Jake's enhanced body did not get tired like a normal human. He could move fast and fight hard for hours without rest. The aliens had no idea what they were facing. His next target was the engine room. If he could control the ship's power, he could trap the crew wherever he wanted them. Jake found 3 engineers working on the main engines. They died quickly and quietly. Jake began shutting down systems throughout the ship. Life support in some sections stopped working. Lights went out in others. The crew began to panic as they realized something was wrong. "Emergency alert," came Captain Zethkar's voice over the ship's speakers. "All crew report to battle stations." "We have an intruder on board," Jake smiled. Now the real hunt would begin. Commander Cryo organized search teams to find the intruder. He divided the remaining crew into groups of 3 and sent them to different sections of the ship. He thought they were dealing with Scaran rebels, who had somehow gotten on board. The first search team found the unconscious guard in the storage room. The second team discovered the dead technicians in the communications room. By the time the third team reached the weapons control room, Cryo understood they were not dealing with normal intruders. "Captain," Cryo said over his radio, "the intruder has killed 8 crew members and destroyed our communications. This is not a normal enemy." "Keep searching," Zethkar ordered. "Find whoever is doing this." But Jake was already hunting the search teams. He used his knowledge of the ship's layout to trap them in dead-end corridors. His enhanced speed and strength made him nearly impossible to fight. The aliens' energy weapons were powerful, but they had to hit him first. Jake eliminated 2 complete search teams before the remaining crew realized they were the ones being hunted. He moved through the ship like death itself, appearing and disappearing before anyone could react. Dr. Velthara was in the medical bay when Jake found her. She was alone, trying to treat wounded crew members. When she saw Jake standing in the doorway, she finally understood the truth. "You are not human," she whispered. "I am very human," Jake said calmly. "Just not the kind you expected. What are you?" Velthara asked. "I am what humans became when you forced us to evolve," Jake said. "I am what happens when a species fights for its survival." Velthara backed away from him. "You were enhanced, made into a weapon." "The Empire thought they had killed all humans," Jake said. "They were wrong. They only made us stronger." "What do you want?" Velthara asked. Jake looked at her for a moment. "I want you to send a message to every human survivor in the galaxy. Tell them Jake Morrison is awake. Tell them the real war is about to begin." "I cannot do that," Velthara said. "The communications are destroyed." "Then you will help me fix them," Jake said, "because you are the only one left who can." On the bridge, Captain Zethkar was trying to understand how one intruder had killed most of his crew. Only 6 aliens remained alive, and they were all hiding in the bridge with the doors locked. "Sir," one of the bridge crew said, "I am detecting movement in the communications room. Someone is repairing the equipment." Zethkar felt cold fear in his stomach. "Send a message to the nearest Imperial fleet. Tell them we need immediate assistance." But before the message could be sent, Jake's voice came over the ship's speakers. "Captain Zethkar," Jake said, "I think we need to talk." Captain Zethkar stared at the bridge door, knowing that death was waiting on the other side. Only 5 crew members remained alive with him. The rest of his ship was silent except for Jake's voice coming through the speakers. "Captain," Jake said, his voice calm and friendly, "I know you can hear me. We should talk about your situation. What do you want, human?" Zethkar spoke into his communication device. "I want you to open the bridge door and come out," Jake said. "If you do, that I will let you and your remaining crew live." Commander Cryo grabbed Zethkar's arm. "Captain, do not trust him. He has killed 24 of our people. He will kill us too." "Maybe," Zethkar said. "But if we stay here, we will die anyway. This ship cannot run forever." Jake's voice came through the speakers again. "I am going to tell you something important, Captain. I am not just any human. I am a special kind of human that your empire created by accident." "What do you mean?" Zethkar asked. "When your people invaded our worlds, they forced us to become something new," Jake explained. "The humans you fought in the war were not the same humans who exist now. We evolved. We became stronger, faster, smarter. You made us into weapons." Dr. Velthara's voice joined Jake's on the speaker. Captain, he is telling the truth. His body has been changed by human science. He is not like the humans we studied in our history books. Doctor, are you hurt? Zethkar asked. No, Captain. But I am helping him now. He has shown me something important. She is helping me repair your communication system, Jake said. Soon I will be able to send messages across the galaxy. Messages that will change everything. Zethkar felt his hope disappearing. What kind of messages? Messages to my people, Jake said. The humans who survived your war and have been hiding for 300 years. They have been waiting for a signal that it is time to come out of hiding. The bridge crew looked at each other with fear. They had always believed that all humans were dead. That is impossible, Crystal said. We destroyed all human worlds. We hunted down every survivor. Jake laughed. You found the humans who wanted to be found. You never found the smart ones. The ones who learned to hide and wait and grow strong. The communication system came back online. Jake's fingers moved quickly over the controls, sending coded messages to locations across the galaxy. The messages were short but clear. Jake Morrison reporting. The wait is over. Begin Phase 2. On distant worlds, hidden human colonies received the messages. In secret bases built inside asteroids, human commanders read Jake's words and smiled. On ships disguised as cargo vessels, human crews prepared their weapons. The messages are sent, Jake announced. Now, Captain, you have a choice. You can open that door and live, or you can stay in there and die when your air runs out. Zethkar looked at his remaining crew. They were scared and tired. They had no weapons that could stop Jake, and their ship was powerless. If I open this door, Zethkar said, what will you do to us? I will put you in a cargo container with enough supplies to last a month, Jake said. Then I will set you adrift near a Vorthan patrol route. Your own people will rescue you, and then? Then you will go back to your empire and tell them what you learned here, Jake said. You will tell them that humans are not extinct. You will tell them that we are coming. Zethkar thought about this offer. It was better than dying on the bridge. How do I know you will keep your word? Zethkar asked. Because I want you to deliver my message, Jake said. Dead messengers cannot speak. Slowly, Zethkar walked to the bridge door controls. His crew watched him with wide eyes. He pressed the button, and the door opened. Jake stood in the doorway, looking exactly like the harmless human who had answered their questions for weeks. But now they could see the truth in his eyes. This was not a victim. This was a predator. Thank you, Captain, Jake said. Please move to Cargo Bay 3. Dr. Velthara will show you the way. An hour later, Jake stood alone on the bridge of the Nexus 7. The remaining Vorthan crew was sealed in a cargo container with supplies and a distress beacon. Jake had already programmed the container to launch toward the nearest Vorthan patrol route. The ship was now completely under his control. Jake looked at the star charts and navigation systems. This was advanced alien technology, much better than anything humans had possessed during the war. Now it belonged to him. Jake activated the ship's long-range scanners and began searching for the hidden human colonies. The coded responses to his messages gave him their locations. There were more survivors than he had hoped. Hundreds of hidden settlements scattered across dozens of star systems. His communication device started receiving incoming messages. Human voices speaking in old military codes that Jake remembered from the war. Phoenix Base to Morrison. We received your signal. What are your orders? Eagle Station to Morrison. Our fleet is ready to move. Just give us the target. Iron Mountain Colony to Morrison. We have been waiting 300 years for this day. Jake smiled as he listened to the voices of his people. They had not forgotten. They had been preparing. All stations, this is Morrison. Jake spoke into the communication device. The Empire believes we are extinct. That gives us the advantage of surprise. Begin operations immediately. Target their outer colonies first. Show them that humanity has returned. Jake programmed the Nexus 7 to jump to the nearest human colony. The ship's engines powered up, and space stretched around them as they entered hyperspace. 3 days later, Jake arrived at Phoenix Base, a hidden human settlement built inside a large asteroid. The colony had been there for over 200 years, growing slowly and carefully. When Jake's ship appeared, the entire population came out to meet him. The colony's leader was an old woman named Helen Carter. She had been born after the war, but she had heard stories from the survivors who built the colony. "We never thought we would see one of the enhanced soldiers again," Helen said as she welcomed Jake. "We thought you were all lost in the final battles." "I was in cryo sleep," Jake explained. "The aliens found me and woke me up. They thought I was just a normal human." "They learned better," Helen said with a grim smile. "This is just the beginning," Jake said. "I have the locations of Empire military bases and supply routes. I know their strengths and weaknesses. We can hurt them badly if we work together." Over the following weeks, Jake worked with the hidden human colonies to plan their return to the galaxy. The Empire's outer settlements began disappearing. Supply ships vanished without a trace. Military outposts went silent. The Vorthan Empire began to panic as they realized their ancient enemy had returned, but they still did not understand the truth. They thought they were fighting the same humans they had defeated 300 years ago. Jake stood on the bridge of his captured ship and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Empire was scrambling to respond to the human attacks. They would send fleets and armies to hunt down the human colonies, but Jake was ready for them. He had spent 3 centuries in cryosleep, but his people had spent those same centuries learning, growing, and preparing. The Empire had made humanity stronger by trying to destroy them. The war was not over, it was just beginning. And this time, humanity would win.